Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to discuss one of the most important Jenkins concepts that we use, that is multi-branch pipeline. And we will also cover a live scenario demo. Let's get started. So what is Jenkins Multibranch Pipeline? Well, Jenkins Multibranch Pipeline allows us to create and manage pipelines automatically for multiple branches of the same project. That means instead of creating a separate Jenkins job manually for every branch, Jenkins itself takes care of creating and running pipelines for each branch. Now let's see how it actually works internally. In multi-branch pipeline, Jenkins scans the source code repository, detects all branches or pull requests, checks whether a Jenkins file is present in the branch, and automatically creates and executes a pipeline for that branch. So for multi-branch pipeline to work, a Jenkins file must be available in the source code management, for example GitHub. No Jenkins file means no pipeline execution for that branch. Now the question arises, why do we even need multi-branch pipeline in the first place? Say our team is working on parallel development, where they are planning multiple releases at the same time. For example, one release in 2 months, another release in 3-4 months, another major release in 5-6 months. So when there are many code changes happening in parallel across multiple branches, we clearly need an automated way to build, test and validate each branch separately. That's where multi-branch pipeline becomes very useful. Now the question is, how do you implement pipelines for each and every branch? Well, let's understand this with a real-time scenario. In an organization called SEH, we have a project named SEH Web App. 2 developers are working in parallel on different features. For example, developer 1 is working on login feature and developer 2 is working on about feature. And developer 1 is using feature/login branch and developer 2 is using feature/about branch. So before merging their code into the release branch or deploying it to any environment like SIT, both developers want to build the application, run unit test cases, perform SonarQube analysis, and upload the generated artifacts to Artifactory. And all of this should happen using a Jenkins CI pipeline automatically and independently for each branch. Well, if we don't use multi-branch pipeline, we need to create separate Jenkins pipeline job for each branch, and these could be many. We must manually configure triggers and we have to maintain multiple Jenkins jobs. Well, without multi-branch pipeline, we can still use a single Jenkins job by parameterizing the branch name or using wildcard patterns in the branch configuration. But in this case, branch discovery is manual. Triggering builds is manual. Managing many branches becomes difficult. Creating separate Jenkins pipeline jobs for every branch and executing them manually is not scalable. This approach is hard to manage and error prone. With multi-branch pipeline, things become very simple. Whenever we create a multi-branch pipeline against a repository, for example SEH Web App in our case, Jenkins automatically creates pipelines or jobs with respect to each branch. For example, branch feature/about Jenkins job will be created, and for branch feature/login job will be created. And the execution of these jobs can also happen automatically. Now developer 1 pushes code along with Jenkinsfile to feature/login branch, and developer 2 also pushes code along with Jenkinsfile to feature/about. Jenkins multi-branch pipeline automatically scans the repository, detects the branches, checks for Jenkins files, and creates and runs a separate pipeline for each branch. And finally, executes all the stages mentioned in the Jenkins file on the respective node agent. So we can say each branch gets its own independent CI pipeline without affecting others. So this diagram represents Jenkins multi-branch pipeline. We have a single GitHub repository called SEH Web App. It contains multiple feature branches. Each branch has its own Jenkins file. Jenkins scans the repository automatically and creates independent CI pipelines for each branch. As a result, feature/login runs its own pipeline and feature/about runs its own pipeline. Both pipeline executes certain stages, for example build, unit test, sonar scan, upload artifacts, without impacting each other. So now let's start with the demo for the scenario we just discussed. So our first task is to create a multi-branch pipeline for a repository so that Jenkins jobs are automatically created for each branch. Well, I already have a Jenkins setup and that is running at here. To create a multi-branch pipeline, we first need a Jenkins plugin called pipeline:multibranch. So I have already installed this plugin, but let me quickly show you where to check it. So go to Manage Jenkins. Under Plugins, from the left sidebar, I will select the Install Plugins because my plugin is already installed. Here we can search for pipeline:multibranch. So my plugin is already installed. If you are doing this for first time, then you will need to go to Available Plugins and there search for pipeline:multibranch and install it and restart Jenkins if required. This plugin is mandatory to create multi-branch pipeline jobs. Now let's go back to Jenkins and navigate to Jenkins, then SEH and SEH web app. Inside this folder we will create a multi-branch pipeline for our SEH web app application. Click on New Item and enter an item name. For me it's SEH-web app because my repo name is also SEH-web app. Let me copy this name and paste it here. Select an item type, select multi-branch pipeline from here. Important note, this option will appear only after installing the pipeline:multibranch plugin. Once done, click on OK. Now we will need to do the basic configuration. Display name, again give it as SEH web app. Description, something like multi-branch pipeline to build, test and upload artifacts for SEH web app. Branch sources configuration. Now let's configure branch sources, which tells Jenkins where our code is located. Click on Add Source. Here we can see three options. Git, this is used for generic Git based repositories like GitLab, Bitbucket or self-hosted Git servers. And GitHub, specifically designed for GitHub repositories. This is what we will use in our case. And this single repository and branch, this allows configuring only one fixed branch. It does not automatically detect branches. So it's not recommended for multi-branch pipelines. This option is rarely used and defeats the purpose of multi-branch pipelines. So let's select GitHub here. And here credentials. If your GitHub repository is private, you must select credentials here. So I'm selecting my credentials. I have created a separate video on Jenkins credentials. So you can check that out if you want to learn how to add credentials. Select the credentials from the drop down and the repository configuration. Now we need to provide the GitHub repository URL here. Go to your GitHub repository, under code, under HTTPS, copy this URL and paste it here under repository at HTTPS URL. You can click on validate. Credentials OK, and we are able to connect to our GitHub repository. Now behaviors. To control how Jenkins discovers branches and pull requests, we need to configure behaviors. Well, this option will come up when we install the GitHub branch source plugin. This plugin allows Jenkins to discover branches automatically, detect pull requests, apply filters and build strategies. So now under behaviors, this is where we can provide some limitations or rules. Basically, under behaviors, you select the option that matches your requirement. You can decide whether Jenkins should discover all the branches in the repository or discover only those branches which have pull requests. The PR based workflow is a separate concept and I will cover that in the next video, so don't worry about it for now. Now let's look at discover branches. This option simply decides which branches Jenkins should discover and create jobs for. Here you will see three options. And if I click on strategy, the first option exclude branches that are also filed as PRs. What this means is, if a branch already has a pull request, Jenkins will not build that branch separately. It will only build the pull request. So basically this avoids duplicate builds, one for the branch and one for the PR. Second option, only branches that are also filed as PRs. This one is little tricky, so let me explain in a simple way. Here Jenkins will discover only those branches that have a pull request, but instead of building the PR, it builds the branch itself. So this option is useful when you want branch style builds, but not only for branches that have PRs. Third option, all branches. This is the simplest one. It ignores whether the branches has the pull request or not. It discovers all the branches from the GitHub repository, and Jenkins creates a pipeline for every branch that has a Jenkins file. For this demo, I'm selecting all branches. For a PR based workflow, we usually use discover pull requests from origin or discover pull requests from forks. I will cover pull request based triggers in the next session, which will be our second scenario task. So I am removing these two options for now. Delete. Then property strategy. Finally, under property strategy, select all branches get the same properties. What this means is, every branch will follow the same pipeline configuration, same Jenkins file behavior, same rules, same stages, same logic. Before moving to build configuration, let me quickly show you the branches available in the GitHub repository for our SEH web app application, and also the Jenkins file present in each branch. So if I click on branches, all, I have 4 branches. One is main branch, one is release branch, and 2 feature branches. Now let's go back to code and select the feature/about branch. Here you can see I have a Jenkins file available. Let me briefly explain this Jenkins file. First of all, this is a declarative pipeline because the syntax starts with pipeline syntax, which is a declarative style. Inside this Jenkins file, we have 4 stages. One is build, another unit test, then sonar scan, and upload artifactory. Each stage is defined under the stages block. And inside every stage, the actual work we want to perform is mentioned under steps. And here we have used agent as any, means Jenkins can run this pipeline on any available agent, but in real projects you might restrict this to specific node or label based on your requirements. For now, we are just using the echo statements under each stage. This is only for demo purpose. In upcoming sessions, we will replace these with actual build, test, sonar, and upload artifacts steps. Currently, the same Jenkins file exists in all the branches under SEH web app repository. But yes, Jenkins Multibranch Pipeline allows us to modify Jenkins file branch wise if needed. Now let's move to build configuration under Jenkins. So here under mode, the only option available is by Jenkins file, which makes sense because multi-branch pipeline always looks for a Jenkins file in source code management. And under script path, we have Jenkins file by default. If you leave it empty, Jenkins automatically looks for a file named Jenkins file. So here important point, if your Jenkins file has a different name, for example Jenkins file -build or something, you must specify that name here. And if your Jenkins file is inside a directory, for example some multi-branch -pipeline directory inside your GitHub repo, then you must provide the full path here. In our case, the file name is Jenkins file and it is present at the root of the repository. So I will just leave script path as it is, that is Jenkins file only. Next is scan repository triggers. For now, I am not selecting anything here, but in real-time projects, this is usually enabled using webhooks. Now let's talk about orphaned item strategy. This controls what happens when a branch is deleted from GitHub and Jenkins detects that the branch no longer exists. By default, Jenkins removes the job immediately, but sometimes we may want to keep old branch jobs for some time so that we can analyze old build results. In that case, we will need to provide days to keep old items. For now, I am not selecting anything here. We will leave all other options as default. Now click on apply and save. As soon as we save, Jenkins starts scanning the configured GitHub repository. See here, you can see. It scans all branches because we didn't configure anything related to pull requests. Click on scan repository log. You can see Jenkins is scanning branches one by one: main, feature about, feature login, release, DevOps, and checking for Jenkinsfile here. Jenkinsfile found, met criteria. Once the scanning is complete, Jenkins automatically creates jobs with respect to each branch. So here scanning has been completed. Let's go to your SCH web app and can see we have 4 branches in GitHub and 4 Jenkins jobs being created here. If we go inside one of the pipelines, we can see Jenkins automatically triggered the pipeline. Here we can see all the jobs with respect to each branches are being executed successfully. If we go inside one of the branch jobs, and here we can see all these stages are successfully executed. Now one more important thing, if I delete one of the branches from the GitHub repository, Jenkins will also delete the corresponding pipeline job from the multi-branch pipeline. Let's try that. Go to code. From here, go to branches and let's delete this release/DevOps. Got deleted. Deleted now. Now let's go back to Jenkins. Now in the Jenkins, just click on scan repository now and open the scan repository log. 3 branches were processed. If we go back to our multi-branch pipeline, we can see that release/DevOps pipeline job is automatically removed from the Jenkins multi-branch pipeline as well. This happens because Jenkins continuously keeps track of branches in source code management. And this is pretty much it for today's video. In the next video, we will cover pull request based triggers in Jenkins multi-branch pipeline. If you found this helpful, please like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching and happy learning.